Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to jump right into this really powerful idea from the book Homo-Servus. It's a paradox that honestly sits right at the heart of our digital lives. We're talking about how the very tools we built to make us more powerful might actually be stealing our ability to control our own future.
I mean, that's a pretty intense question, right? Our phones, our smart homes, our AI assistants, they give us what feels like superpowers. But what's the catch? Could there be a hidden cost we're not seeing? Is all this convenience slowly costing us our freedom?
And that right there, that is the core idea we're digging into today, the sovereignty paradox. To put it simply, all the incredible digital progress we're making is starting to chip away at the most basic idea of human society, our sovereignty, our fundamental right to rule ourselves.
Now take a look at this because it really breaks down the shift. For, ever, sovereignty was physical. It was about controlling land, setting borders, making laws. But now, it's about controlling data, writing code, and owning the massive cloud servers that basically run our entire world. And the authority? Well, it's moving away from governments and straight into the hands of algorithms and the giant corporations that build them.
All right, so let's really get into this paradox. The source material for this explainer lays it out perfectly as a crisis that happens in three major acts.
First up, we're going to look at you, the individual, and see how our own personal autonomy, our freedom of choice, is being worn down. Then we'll scale it up to the national level, where entire countries are basically becoming dependent on private tech companies. And finally, the big one, we'll look at what this means for humanity as a whole, and a future that we might not even control anymore.
Okay, let's kick things off with Act 1. And this isn't some abstract, far-off idea. This is about how the sovereignty paradox is showing up in your life, right now, every single day.
So, this whole crisis really starts with a concept you've probably heard thrown around: surveillance capitalism. The idea is that your personal experiences, every click, every like, every late-night search, are being scooped up, bundled, and sold as a product. In this system, you're not the customer, you're the merchandise.
The book we're drawing from coins this incredible term, Homo-Servus. It literally translates to man-slave. But look, we're not talking about physical chains here. It describes a new kind of human, bound by invisible forces, by lines of code, by complex algorithms, and by our total dependence on these digital systems that run our lives.
And this gives you some terrifyingly real examples of how this actually works. Algorithms are nudging you, manipulating you, and you probably don't even notice. They're shaping what you buy, what you believe, even who you vote for. We saw it when Instagram's AI was found to be pushing content that made users anxious. We saw it in big, life-changing ways, like when Amazon's hiring AI was caught discriminating against women. Your autonomy is being silently auctioned off.
Okay, so now that we've seen how this hits us on a personal level, let's zoom out. In Act 2, we get to see how this whole paradox starts to shake up entire nations.
During the war in Ukraine, the country's entire military and government were depending on one single service for their most critical communications: SpaceX's Starlink. Just wrap your head around that for a second. An entire nation's ability to defend itself rested in the hands of one CEO, a private citizen. That's a shift of power that is just staggering.
This table does an amazing job of laying out this new world order. Nation-states, they still rule over physical land with laws and treaties. But tech giants, they rule over the digital world with their own set of laws. You know them as terms of service. The source calls them digital fiefdoms, which is perfect. For example, the EU can pass a huge data privacy law like GDPR, but at the end of the day, most of that European data is still sitting on cloud servers owned by American companies.
And that brings us to the final, and honestly, the most mind-bending act of this whole crisis. The stakes are no longer just about you or your country. They're about the future of our entire species.
So here's the deal. It's called the black box problem. We are building artificial intelligence that is so unbelievably complex that even the brilliant engineers who made it can't fully explain how it gets its answers. We're literally creating a new form of authority that we can't question or even understand. I mean, how can you possibly govern something that you can't even explain?
And just look at what's coming down the pike. Once we have real, working quantum computers, they'll likely be able to shatter almost all of our current encryption. We're talking global finance, national security secrets, your private data. All of it could become wide open, practically overnight. And who's going to hold the keys to that kingdom? The corporations that own these quantum black boxes.
So
After all that, I mean, from our personal lives all the way up to the fate of humanity, you have to ask, are we just stuck on this path? Is this whole thing inevitable? Or is there actually a way to take back the controls?
This really is the ultimate question, isn't it? The old way of thinking about sovereignty, absolute, top-down control, it just doesn't seem to be working in the digital age. So if we can't command the whole ship anymore, what on earth do we do?
Now, the source material doesn't just leave us hanging with the problem. It actually proposes a pretty radical new way forward. It's called a Manifesto for Post-Human Sovereignty, and it's all about completely rethinking our relationship with our own technology.
The big idea here isn't to just smash our computers and go live in the woods. It's about changing our whole mindset, moving from control to something more like kinship or collaboration. Instead of trying to dominate our technology, maybe we can build new systems, what the book calls relational infrastructures, where we share authority between humans, our algorithms, and even the natural ecosystems we depend on. It's a wild idea, but maybe it's what's needed for a more balanced future.
Everything we've gone over today is pulled from the book Homo-Servus, The Collapse of Human Sovereignty in the Digital Era, and it's by Dr. Wahiba Melalawi, Dr. Mubarak Gut Mohammed, and Dr. Halima Melalawi. If this got you thinking and you want to go deeper, you can find the book on Amazon. And you can also contact the authors directly at their website, which is www.homoservus.org. Thanks so much for joining me.